On this episode, I'm going to show you how to patch and repair that damaged drywall on your corner wall, whether it got damaged by furniture, foot traffic, or whatever, so stay tuned. Welcome to Fix This House. If you're new to the channel, please consider pressing the subscribe and notification bell so you could always be in tune on DIYs, how-to videos, and product reviews that I do within this channel. On this part of the corner of my wall, it has a metal corner bead. Now some houses or some of your corners might be plastic or paper/metal. Depending on what you have, this technique will work just as well. So looking at both parts of my wall, each edge has actually been damaged by me moving around furniture over time and exercise equipment. And also I have kids that run around and play around with their cars, so this is pretty much inevitable and it's bound to happen. Luckily, I don't have any baseboards installed yet. Now take a paint scraper, or you can use a 4-inch drywall knife just to knock out all that loose paint, loose texture, or drywall, so you can prep this up evenly before we even start this project. And as you can see on here, when I tap on this, this is very loose. We can't have this when we repair this thing. Now I'm going to be relying onto my Works brad nailer. This is an 18 gauge brad nailer. It's by Nail Force by Works, and I love using this thing because it's so handy. It's not as loud as a pneumatic type brad nailer, so I really like this, and it's my go-to. I kind of went crazy with this, but this deserves a slow motion. So like what I said, I kind of went overboard on the nail on this, but I know for sure that it's not going to move and it's ready for prep. So also, before we start doing anything again, make sure you vacuum off the area. Make sure you clean the wall and vacuum the wall from dust so that when we start putting joint compound, it will stick really well. So same thing goes with the other side. Let's go and vacuum off the wall and let's start putting down drop. So you can see here, I'm just putting down a paper drop. Make sure that you cover everything that you don't want to get ruined. Especially here, I have LVP or luxury vinyl floor, and I don't want that getting messed up by the work that's going to go around this piece. Okay, so now we're going to be mixing up the mud, or you can call this joint compound. I'm going to be leaving in the description down below the joint compound that you can use, because there's different ones with different working times. Make sure that you mix it up so that the composition of this thing has a nice texture like yogurt. You can see that the right here has that little crack, so I'm going to be using my mesh tape. Now mesh tape is really awesome because it's really great for tiny small repairs and cracks like this. I'm applying a little bit joint compound to cover that mesh tape. Again, take your time on this. Make sure you finesse it real well. I'm just applying little by little because I want to fill out those gaps before I apply a lot more later on with my drywall knife. Now I'm going to be using my 6-inch drywall knife so that I can skim over this. You might end up doing this 2 to 3 times depending on how your drywall joint compound is. Sometimes this stuff shrinks, so you might have to do this 2 to 3 times just so you can get that nice even layer. Okay, so make sure you do a nice finesse over that. And again, right after it dries, if it does shrink, apply a second or third layer. It's totally up to you and the joint compound. It all depends on the joint compound that you use. Again, I like using the easy sand ones that are 5 or 45 or even 90 working times. Now I'm going to be using my 180 grit sandpaper. Make sure that you sand really well. Don't over sand that you might end up exposing that mesh tape. But make sure, like what I mentioned on my past video on how to do drywall, when you're doing this, make sure that you feather in the edges, because we're going to be applying texture later on to match it with the previous or the existing drywall texture. Vacuum off the wall again, clean it from the dust so that when we apply the texture, it will stick. Do the same thing on the other side. Finesse it with that sandpaper. Again, I'm not a big fan of the old texture. It's a lot bigger than what we're going to be spraying later on, but we're going to do our best to match it with the ones that we're going to be spraying. Okay, make sure you clean up around it using that. Well, I'm actually using my 2.5 gallon shop vac. Now we're going to cover everything up. Make sure that you prep up the surrounding areas because it will get messy if you don't cover everything up. Now there's 2 ways you can mix your joint compound. You can do it by hand like what I'm doing now, depending on how big your project is or how much you're going to be spraying. This one's a little tiny area, so I'm just going to be using that. But for bigger areas, this is a good technique right here. Paint mixer right here and a drill. The consistency that we're going for is a yogurt-like texture. So we're just gonna add a little bit of water at a time. Again, don't put too much water. So a little bit at a time there. Then let's go mix it. So here's a little trick. Right when you're done using this, stir it in the water right here. Easy way to clean up your paint mixer. The texture sprayer today that I'm going to be using is this one. It has 3 different types of nozzle. I made a separate video on this air sprayer, so I'll leave it on the link on the top right there for you guys to watch that video. But I'm going to be using my favorite, the small setting, the small nozzle. And yeah, I got a 25-foot hose, air hose, 1/4 inch. And then I have this small pancake air compressor that I'm gonna keep to air pressure up to 100 psi to keep it and maintain it that way. And that's how it should be. Then I'm gonna go and load this up and let's go start spraying. I'm not gonna be going full out on this. As you can see, I'm just spraying it little by little, keeping a distance about a foot away. And then I'm just gauging on how much I'm going to be spraying. So I'm just going to be tapping that trigger little by little. So I don't want to go overboard. Again, I'm just trying to feather it in with my existing texture. And we're just going to work around each and every one of the corners, including this one right here. We're going to continue on with this one. As you can see, I dropped off really well because that overspray is going to get everywhere if you don't do a good cover. And you can see that the old texture is a lot bigger, but we're going to do our best to feather it in and spray it with a nice consistent texture right there. So again, it's all about the finessing and all about the gauging of everything. And now I'm just using a piece of paper and we're just going to paint over it. I'm using my Dove White. The old color is actually gray, but I'm just going to go over it with another second coat later on. This is just for instructional purposes. And as you can see, this is what it looks like before. Looks all beat up, tattered, and yeah, and this is the way it looks like now. So I hope you enjoyed this quick tutorial, friends, and I hope you found value to this. And if you did find value, please consider pressing that big thumbs up, subscribe, and notification bell so you could always be in tune on DIYs, how-to videos, and product reviews that I do within this channel. I'll see you next time, friends.